Hello again. Uh, Welcome to this presentation on course PLO mapping. My name is Edmond Zahidi, and I think I have had the privilege to work with most of you in the past few months regarding the other activities. This presentation is being recorded, and if you have any questions, it would be appreciated to wait until the end of the session, as I may cover the information you need to know during the presentation. I will also invite you to speak up and ask questions by taking the mic if you'd like. And when I say we have worked together, it was in the context of cyclical program reviews, more specifically the strength weakness analysis, or SWOT for short, and the revision of program learning outcomes. So it is in that context today that I'm proposing that we review the last step that I will be able to support you with, namely mapping courses to the program learning outcomes. Let's talk about the agenda. Today, I propose that we first review what this activity is and why we do it. It's always good to understand the reason why we are doing stuff, where we'll focus mainly on the question of why all this work is necessary. Then we'll look in detail at the deliverables and tools for undergraduate programs before delving into graduate programs. The difference is a minor difference, but there are different templates, so it's worth having two different sections. Finally, we'll review the different steps so you have a sense of the timeline. First, let's talk about the purpose of course to program learning outcome mapping and the relevant definitions. Well, to get straight to the point, we're interested here in evaluating how well courses align with the program learning outcomes. More specifically, we want to know where each outcome is addressed and at what level. Here we're talking about three levels: introduction, reinforcement, and advanced. The goal here is to confirm that progression is coherent at the program level. How are we going to evaluate this alignment? This refers to the three levels IRA, introduction, reinforcement, and advanced, at which learning happens. Here we are referring to the well-known spiral concept in pedagogy, where students encounter similar content multiple times, but at increasingly advanced levels. We start with the I's, move through the R's, and reach the A's. But what is course PLO mapping? Well, the course PLO mapping means reviewing each course to determine which program outcomes are addressed and at what level. We capture and represent this information using a matrix. We're going to look at that in a moment. Courses will be in rows and outcomes in columns. This tool makes it easier to spot gaps, redundancies, and learning progression. As we just saw on the previous slide, we have three levels, the IRA, and this process will help us verify program coherence, avoid gaps or redundancies. Actually, I would say identify gaps or potential redundancies, and ensure that students progress logically from one course to the next. Small note here that in this field, other labels or names for levels are used. For example, instead of reinforcement, you can see, or you may see, developed or development. Instead of advanced, you may see mastered. Well, let's see how this looks in practice. That's a case of a sample program. I'm going to use my laser pointer here. So as you can see, you have on your these first three columns the course, and so I have omitted the title of the course for brevity, for representation. Then you have the PLOs here in this row, and you have the three labels: the I, the R, and the A's. So what happened is that each course was assigned to a professor who has sufficient expertise in order to judge at what level the corresponding PLO is being covered. If it is covered, and if it is not covered, it appears in gray. So immediately you can see that there are desertic areas here that are not covered. Looks like PLO 14 and 15 are not that covered. So basically, this map gives us an overall view and not only of the desertic areas, but also about the progression. So we expect students to start by the I, then move on to the R, finally reach the advanced level. If you have an I suddenly in the fourth year course, that may be something to look at. So in general, we expect a course to contribute to about between 3 to 6 PLOs at a specific level, I, R, and A. So note here, the small star here means that at the undergraduate programs, we have 3 levels, but for graduate programs, because we understand that we don't have so many courses, and here I need to open a parenthesis, is that when we say course, we mean any learning activity. So this could be course, projects, labs, seminars, theses, field work, you name it, right? So we combine the I and R. So we have a new level named I and R. Then we combine the R and A. And finally, we end up with 5 levels for graduate program. That's the flexibility for graduate program. So what does mean introduction? At the introduction level, students work at the basic level with foundational elements, techniques, methodologies related to the outcome, the PLO in question. About reinforcement is when students work at an intermediate level. So all these levels are expressed relative to the final expected outcome. So it's relative to the program and to the granted degree. They already have the basic skills and knowledge related to the outcome, and they use them to build greater competence. Finally, advance is that we see that students reach the highest level we can reasonably expect from someone earning this degree. Again, all of these I, R, and A are relative to the program and granted degree. So we're not talking, when we say advanced, we're not comparing to a Nobel Prize. I think it's clear by now that the ultimate objective of this activity is to evaluate alignment. More specifically, we want to answer this question. For a given program, to what extent are learning activities aligned with the program learning outcomes? Well, ideally, we would use a full curriculum analysis to gauge the amount of alignment with the PLOs. And the PLOs, we recall that these are the very foundation of the program. So all other curricular elements should align with these. But because of time constraints and limited resources that we have, we use the course PLO mapping, which is the first step and a major step, I would say, in the full curriculum analysis. I'm not going to the details on that, but let's come back to the process itself. So it's a step-by-step process where we try to find reliable clues about potential gaps, potential redundancies in the program. Now, please note that since the academic unit has just revised the PLOs, it's completely normal to end up with some kind of gaps, some kind of redundancies. So finding these or identifying these is not negative at all. On the contrary, it often tells us that the PLO revisions were done thoughtfully. So we have some challenges here. On the second step is this process is going to inform the action plan. So what needs to be done? If something needs to be done, some changes needs to be brought to the curriculum, what are these changes? We're going to talk about this again in a minute. And you remember I said this multiple times in the previous presentations. The action plan or the implementation plan is something that the external evaluators are going to look closely. Now we can better understand why do we do the course PLO mapping. We would like to ensure program coherence. It's essential to verify that the curriculum intentionally supports all program learning outcomes. This ensures no outcome is left to chance. Mapping also helps identify gaps and redundancies. We can see what's missing, if something is missing, what is repeating, if something is being repeated. It helps also to clarify shared responsibility across courses. For each outcome, we can see which courses are supposed to introduce it, reinforce it, or bring students to the advanced level. We're referring to the famous spiral IRA here. The ultimate goal is to improve the student learning pathway by showing a logical, intentional progression across the program. Finally, when relevant, mapping can also meet accreditation requirements. Well, it can provide clear evidence of curriculum alignment with goals set by external bodies. The benefits, are real and concrete. I'm not going to read into the details, but just very shortly, for students, mapping makes the learning pathway more progressive and more predictable. For faculty and academic administration, this activity supports curriculum revision, course sequencing, and collaboration among colleagues. I'm sure that some of you might be asking themselves, okay, I get all of that, but what is my role here as a director or as a professor in the program? Well, for each course, we'll need about 10 to 20 minutes of the instructor's time, whoever is assigned to this task. We'll come back to this topic in a moment. The goal here is to review a few key elements of the course. What are these key elements? The course learning outcomes for that course, the main learning activities, and the key assessments. These are the pieces that are going to be the center of attention. These elements are going to be the basis for determining how the course contributes to the program outcomes. What the instructor should do then is to choose or determine the level IRA, again, for undergraduate program, and for graduate programs, you have 5 levels. So determine at what level each PLO is covered, if it is covered. So again here, covered means that the PLO is taught, practiced, and assessed. Now you can see that the idea is to rate by evidence. What is this evidence? Is the set of learning activities, CLOs, key learning activities, signature assessments, anything that kind of is the substance of the course. And typically, we aim at covering between 3 to 6 PLOs per course. This means that what we would like to avoid to do is to map all the PLOs to a single course. So now let's move on to the tools and deliverables for undergraduate programs. I'll show you the supporting documents and how to use them in practice. Well, I'm going to share with you in the chat area so that you get a chance, if you wish, to access these at the same time as I do the short demonstration to get a better feeling of how it looks like. So I have put for you the English guide, the template for undergraduate programs, the template for the graduate programs. Oh, it gives me a message, says that maybe some of you might not have access. Don't be over concerned about that. I'll fix that after the presentation, and then anyway, I will share all of this with you in a message. More on that when we get there. So, here is the course PLO mapping guide that I have shared with you. Basically, it explains in more detail, and I invite you and encourage you to go over this. What is that we do? What are the I level, R level, A level definitions? And what is the hypothetical representation? Marie-Ève, I have shared the English version by right, so I'm sorry if it is not the first one that I shared was the English. Hypothetically, in a very nice, ideal environment, utopia environment, I would say you would have nicely the I, the R, and the A that follow each other. So the I are in green, the R are in blue, the A are in orange, and you see that you have two times R, two times roughly two, three, etc. So that is ideal. In practice, what we have, well, this is another example. You have one example in the presentation slides. You have lots of I's, a few R's and A's, and intermingling of all of these, and you have desertic areas as well. So this is a true course PLO map that I show you with the permission of the academic unit. And you have the steps that are explained in the guide, and finally what happens to that. So it's a more detailed version of what we see, but let's move on to the template and how the process is implemented in practice. Well, here are the steps. Step number one is to identify the list of courses and the list of professors for each course. We will call them course leads. So here, all the compulsory courses, I mean, courses in quote means that any type of learning activity. Again, I use course, but it can be thesis, webinar, seminar, presentation, fieldwork, etc. And one question that I get often is that, well, we have lots of compulsory courses, and some of the courses come from other departments, other schools, etc., like language or stuff like that. Well, each course should be able to support one PLO. Otherwise, as a learning activity, what does it do in your curriculum? So we're going to get to that again. So we need to use the template and indicate the coverage level, but as nothing replaces a nice small demo, I'm going to show it to you here. And that's the Excel file. So as you can see, you have the course information here. So for example, ITI is the course code, is 3 units, and this is the code 1120 is the number of the course for English version, and 1520 is the French language version. Introduction to Computing, Introduction à l'informatique. It's a compulsory, and the professor in charge is S. Florian. And in the program, if you scroll here, you have 15 PLOs, and the professor in charge, S. Florian, has determined that PLO 1 is not covered, PLO 2 is covered at the eye level, PLO 3 at the eye level, and so on and so forth until PLO 15. So that's why the selection of the professor in charge is extremely important. It should be someone who has knowledge, good knowledge of the course, and has offered the course so that he or she knows exactly what happens in the classroom. So it's not in theory this should be taught, it's what is happening in the real classroom environment. So for the next course, as you can see, for example, if we enter a course, would have put the information and say for the PLO4, imagine that we could put an I here, or for another course here, we may have an R, and for another course that will be subsequent to this would be an A, etc. So you can see that by selecting these, you can identify which course is covered at what level. That's all for my short demonstration. Would like to go back. So we have this introduction, reinforcement, and advance. The default setting is not covered, obviously. So a few points here. I mentioned that all compulsory courses should be included, yes. So for example, if you have a 4-year bachelor degree, 120 units, assuming that you have 3 units per course, you are aiming at listing 40 courses. If you have 60 unit program, you aim at 20 courses, sorry. Now, the question is always on the optional and elective courses. Well, that's a challenge. That's a challenge. And the solution we propose to this challenge is to please try to select a representative sample of these courses. Oh my God, what does mean a representative sample? Well, we simplify things and we say that representative means that this is the path. These are the set of courses that are usually taken by your students. So either you know in general what your students are taking, and or you don't know. So if you don't know, there is still help. The IRP can assist you in identifying this information. I'm not going through the details here, but that's the way we work. So it's an extra work. And why do we go through all this hassle? Well, please remember that at the end of the day, the idea is to offer an overall view and verify coherence of this curriculum, which means alignment with the program learning outcomes. So there's no other way and this is actually requested by the regulatory body of the Ministry of Education in Ontario, there's to prove this coherence, we need to show this mapping. And so at the end of the day, this is the same image that we saw previously on the slides. This is what you get. This is when all the IRA have been entered by professors. And we would like to see, in order to get some more quantitative information, can we have some other type of representation? Well, this is exactly the topic of our next slide. And that's the representation that we will offer you. So how does this work? Well, we would like to look at, again, you have your PLOs that are listed here from 1 to 15. It's exactly the same program. And you have introduction, reinforcement, and advanced levels, the 3 levels. Now, immediately, visually, by looking at such a graph, you see that, it seems that there is a lot of discrepancy in the coverage. So let's say PLO1, let's go level by level. Here we see introduction level, we have 9, so this small number in the middle of the bubble. The bubble is this represents the size of the number of, is related to the number of courses that cover the PLO1 at this level. Okay, so 9 courses are covering PLO1 at the introduction level, 3 courses PLO2, 5 courses PLO3, and so on and so forth. So we see that PLO1 and PLO9 are heavily covered at the introduction level. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? We wouldn't know as the quality control and program evaluation office. Our role here is to kind of convey this information to you as the subject matter expert and persons who are responsible for the program to decide whether you need to modify or not modify. I would say that when we look at the disparity, it looks that our PLO7 is poorly covered. Actually, it's introduced only once. And you can see that next at the reinforcement level and at the advanced level also, it's not that much covered. But what is a concerning issue is that PLO14 is not covered at all at the introduction level. If we move to the reinforcement level, we have more or less the same kind of scenario, except that it's PLO15 that is not covered. So you can see by looking at this graph, either vertically or horizontally, you can detect some disparities. You can detect that there are some concerns here that students may not have the optimum experience learning. And in the guide, actually, we specify that the minimum number of coverage at each level is 2 times. There's no maximum. There's a minimum. And we say that in order for a student to be well equipped with the PLO, master, kind of understand exactly what's going on in the PLO, what means the PLO, and get competency in the PLO, he or she needs 2 times of exposure to that PLO at that level. So 1 is needs to be increased. Again, this is a comment that we are going to make according to the guide. And where this one, so we have limited resources. So if we put another kind of course on this PLO 7, whatever it is, well, we need to take it from somewhere, right? Because we have limited time in the whole curriculum. So that is the kind of discussion that is going to be engaged once we have this information. So based on the matrix and the visualization, I will be providing you with, as the lead analyst, with a report that includes some suggestions and some recommendations. Well, suggestions are in this context something that might be desirable. Let's say we notice on our side that we have this PLO that is covered a bit more, I mean, 3 or 4 times more than the average of the rest. Is this something that you really would like to emphasize, or you would like to have a look at it? Recommendation, on the other hand, is something that appears to be necessary to ensure coherence. Let's say you don't have coverage of this PLO, sufficient coverage. There's no coverage at all, or there's only one course that covers it in the whole curriculum. So again, these are not judgments about teaching quality. We are evaluating the alignment. The course might be a very good course and is, all the courses are very good courses, but it's the alignment that we are interested to evaluate. So sorry, regarding the, so for each PLO, there will be a kind of feedback to you that there is no change that is being required. Or we are going to ask you the question, would you like to consider, or is it necessary to increase coverage of this PLO? Would you like to consider, or would you be interested to decrease the coverage of the number of courses for this particular PLO? So for each PLO. Now, a full report is going to be handed over to you for undergraduate programs. For graduate programs, the report will be much shorter. And the reason is that you have much less number of courses and learning activities anyway. So in this section, let's dive in for the deliverable and tools for the graduate program. So, well, the good news is that it's almost the same. And you guess that the only difference is that the coverage level are going to be 5 levels here. So almost the same, which means, again, need to identify the list of courses, the list of professors who are going to determine the IRA or the IR and RA levels. Use the template. We're going to look at that in a second. Indicate coverage level, and the instructions are again in the guide. So let's move on to the demonstration. This time I look at the graduate, and sure enough, you see that for your graduate course, for example, 5530, méthode d'intervention en service social, it's a compulsory. El Meunier is in charge, and PLO1 is not covered, PLO2 is I, PLO3 is not covered, PLO4 is I plus R here. So we have the combination of these PLOs, and so on and so forth. So for example, if we have another course that comes here, we may have, for example, PLO2 that will be at an R level, and here we may have RA level or R plus A level. So that is how it works. So exactly the same process. The only difference between undergraduate and graduate is that in graduate programs, we have 5 levels to accommodate the fact that we may have less number of learning activities, less number of courses. So I'm going to clean up what I did. Yeah. Here we go. So once you have done the levels, the 5 levels, introduction, reinforcement, reinforcement, advanced or not covered, you leave it empty. Well, it will be you up to me to have a look and give you kind of candid feedback about what I think about the repartition of the distribution of the courses in coverage. Now, we're going to move on to the process itself, what the workflow looks like from start to finish and how it fits into the review timeline. You remember this horizontal bar. It's the same process. Anything that is below this bar is my responsibility. Anything that is above these bars is your area. And we see a kind of split here where phase A is when you ask your professors to label the courses that you would have identified. You produce the matrix. Phase B is the analysis, the report that I mentioned to you. And then based on the outcome or the finding, either there are no changes required, perfect, everything is done, or there may be some changes that are required. So if evidence shows that there are some gaps or redundancies, something needs to be done. So here's the detail now. We are here, step 1, share guides and templates. Well, you have it in the chat area, but I will make sure that I will follow up within the next few days with all of you separately to send you the links. Step 2, revise PLOs. So that's important. We can start this activity only if we have the revised PLOs. If the PLOs are not correctly, properly expressed, there's no point running this activity because you will see it's not going to work. So the determination of the courses, compulsory courses, optional courses, elective courses, we have spoken about that, and the identification of the professor in charge for each course or the professors in charge. So this could be a team activity as well. Step 3, this is where the professors are going to enter the labels for each level and for each course. So it's the matrix is produced. We suggest the calibration inside the academic unit, a quick reality check, cross-checking to see there's lots of subjectivity in these I's and R's and A's. So in order to kind of align the definitions, we're going to get to that. It's worth it that the director has a look at this and kind of ensures that the I, R, A are really reflecting what is happening on the ground. Then I will use this, you will inform me, and I will use this information to assess the PLO coverage, which gets out to step 6, which is the assessment report. 7A is when no major gaps or redundancies would have been detected. And this is going to be included in the self-evaluation report as a finding for this activity. 7B is that if there are potential redundancies and potential gaps, then this also needs to be included in the self-evaluation report, but the self-evaluation report will ask you to produce a curriculum change proposal. I'm going to explain what this is in the next slide. And you can, based on the curriculum change proposal, update the course PLO map, and then again include everything in the self-evaluation report. So that's in terms of the process. We're going to look at the curriculum change proposal, and then I'm going to give you some idea of the timeline. So let's move on to the curriculum change proposal. What is it? Well, the objective is to identify all changes, potential changes that the courses need to undergo to ensure curriculum coherence. And when we say coherence, means that they are aligned with the PLOs, not a PLO super covered, and some PLOs are poorly covered or not covered at all. So when we say we're talking about content, obviously the description, the course learning outcomes are going to be the major elements, but they are also the key assessment activities. And the other thing is the sequence, respective timing of the when this course is offered in the curriculum. So if you have a course that says that this is an advanced course, and it happens that after the advanced course you have reinforcement, or you have introductory courses, which we saw some examples in the previous slides. That's something to look at. The reality check is always to verify coherence, to see whether everything is working and is a workable solution that is being proposed. Now, in terms of timing, the mapping itself is a relatively short activity, often a matter of weeks, because it is based on existing course information. The longer part is what happens after all of this is over. If changes are needed, curriculum revisions, approvals, maybe minor or major modification, and course updates can take 12 to 18 months during the implementation of the action plan. So this is after the self-evaluation report has been submitted. There may be some work to be done, but this work can kind of be spread over the longer period of time. A quick checklist here. The prerequisite for this activity, I said it, but it's worth it to mention it again. It's to define the PLOs very clearly. We want clearly defined PLOs. The good news is that for most of you, I see the names, we have done this activity. The provision of rating definitions for faculty to ensure consistency. This here we are talking about the levels, introductory, reinforcement, and advanced. What does it mean? When is it covered? When it is not covered? So please inform the professor in charge to pay attention, and we may need to brief them. I mean, based on this presentation, now you have a good understanding of what IRA entails. This information needs to be communicated to the professor who needs to do this work. Then engaging the faculty of mapping, obviously, this is where each instructor is going to give the IRA labels. A reality check, I mentioned that just to make sure that everybody, when they say A, they mean the same thing. When they say I, it's not a professor is so humble and say that, oh, this is introductory. But when you look at the course learning outcome and you see that, this is really should be an R or should be even an A course. So a reality check sometimes helps with the discussion with the professor who is engaged. My role would be to analyze the data to see from a neutral and pedagogical point of view, submit to you some suggestions. So this will be, for example, PLOs that are covered too early or too late in the curriculum, PLOs that are covered too rarely or too frequently. Are there any opportunities for curriculum improvement? Obviously, this is an activity that I would strongly believe it can be used for ongoing improvement. This is not an activity that should be done every 8 years. It can be done on a 3 or 5 years basis, but this is just a suggestion. Take-home message. So, course PLO mapping, it can only start once the PLO revision is done. We do PLO coverage, evaluation of the PLO coverage by the course, each course. And the aim is to provide insights into the coherence of the program and identify areas for improvement. It's a step-by-step process where we need to list all the compulsory courses, a representative, and I agree with you, this is a challenge, selection of electives. We have IRA for undergraduate, we have 5 levels for the graduate programs. The analysis is supported by myself, is offered as insights. It's evidence-based, based on the evidence that you would be providing, completely neutral. I'm agnostic to the program, and all I see is the course PLO mapping, so I tend to respect purely a pedagogical point of view. The success criteria for this activity is, first, the professors should be familiar with the PLOs. And this is why I really insisted on the consultation with professors during the revision of your program learning outcomes. For those who have done this process and for the others to come, I really insist on them giving feedback. This is the golden opportunity to make them familiar with the PLOs. And subjectivity of the IRA also, and this needs a reality check. This subjectivity is always a matter of kind of discussion, and this is why we put kind of guardrails to make sure that everyone is on the same page. This is not a simple formality. We are targeting real outcomes. Real outcomes like informing the action plan, which is the subsequent step to improve program coherence. If there is a need to improve program coherence, it can assist in identify courses that may need to be better aligned. So again, we are not evaluating the courses, we are evaluating the alignment of the courses with the PLOs. And the overall aim or objective here is to reach a better student experience and faculty satisfaction. If you have clearest course sequence, good laddering, logical kind of stacking up of courses, and everyone is happy with this curriculum, obviously you are going to get a better student experience. What's next? Well, if we have already communicated, which means I have your files and everything is available to me, you don't have to do anything. I have the list, the attendance list for this presentation. Just wait for a message from me either this week or early next week. I will send you a message with the links to guides, links to the templates. I would have uploaded the templates Excel file in the existing private section that we already have on SharePoint. Please, 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 if the PLOs are not yet finalized, they should be completed ASAP. So we cannot start this activity if you don't have your PLOs. Again, it doesn't make any sense. If we have not communicated before, which means we have not worked on the PLO, which we have not done any SWOT analysis, well, please send the following information to my email. This is zahidi@uottawa.ca. Please indicate the name of or names of the programs, the email address of the persons responsible for this activity, who should receive a copy of this communication, and this will be on a case-by-case basis. So we cannot kind of decide what is going to happen right now. I need to really understand your situation, particular situation. I hope that we don't have so many of these cases, and all of your cases will be categorized as we have already communicated. We have all the PLOs nice and ready to go full speed. With this, I finish my presentation. Thank you for your attention. At this point, I'd like to open the floor for questions, especially practical ones about how to map a course, how to interpret IRA, and how the results will be used in your unit self-evaluation and action planning. Thank you. Marie-Ève, allez-y. Please go.
Bonjour. Oui, donc ma question, c'est vraiment in English, sorry. So I'm from the School of Nursing, so we have a lot of nursing classes, but in our program, we obviously have classes that are outside of School of Nursing in terms of like the A&P, like the anatomy and things like that. Do we include that in all our PLO mapping and everything? Because those would be profs that are not within our department. So I just want to verify.
Excellent question. If these are compulsory courses, Marie-Ève, yes, because they are here for a good reason, and they should be here. Any learning activity, this is the logic. Any learning activity that is in the curriculum needs to be here to support a program learning outcome. Meaning to say that if it does not support any program learning outcome, it hasn't have any place to be in the curriculum. So I get this question, especially for the undergraduate degrees. Let's say you have learning French language. Why do you want to learn French language as a compulsory course? Well, you have communication PLOs, and people need to communicate in the official language. I mean, this is according to the PLOs. Otherwise, why are you forcing people to learn a language? So that's the logic. Yes, please list all the now. The thing is that if a course is not controlled by your department or academic unit, there are two ways to approach this. Number one is to ask kindly. That is a difficult thing because we don't have any type of monetary compensation to offer them, part-time professors or other academic units, if they are willingly willing to oblige and look at the PLOs and tell you what are the PLOs that are covered and at what level. So this is solution number one. Sometimes, depending on the relationship that you have with the professor in charge, this might work. Sometimes we suggest giving them a letter of appreciation after this work. Thank you for helping us in the course PLO mapping. It's extremely important for us. Well, who knows? Maybe some individuals will appreciate that. If this does not work, the only way around is for the director of the program or any other professors that is knowledgeable enough in this field to address this situation. So get a course plan. What are the course learning outcomes? What is the course description? What is happening? If it is an internship, what does do the student? And to what PLO is this aligned? Okay, Marie-Ève? Tara.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a program specific question I'll ask after because I know there's like some really important ones in the chat. One of the ones I put in the chat is, I think, applicable to everyone. You were saying that for a course to be considered covered or a PLO to be considered covered, there has to be an assessment. Does that apply at the graduate level? Because we don't have a lot of assessments.
By assessment, you mean exams during courses?
No, you said assessment, and I'm not sure how you define that. That's I guess, my first question. But you said in order for a PLO to be considered covered, there has to be an assessment.
Okay. Let me go back real quick to the slide I think, but just to avoid any confusion from my part.
So it was under undergrad, but I wondered if it applied to grad programs.
Yeah, it's when we say, where was that? Yeah. So signature assessments. Well, anything by assessment is we need to think in terms of evaluating the performance of how the performance of the student is evaluated in that course. So this is what I meant. For example, if you have a presentation or you have a defense, PhD defense, the assessment is not like the one that happens during an undergraduate. So this is one of the key elements that we are looking at in order to see which PLO. So how the student's performance is being assessed. This will be giving us clues as which PLOs are covered. Because if a PLO is covered, this means that the student performance is being evaluated in that learning activity.
And that's the part I'm concerned about, because we teach certain things like soft skills that are not necessarily assessed, that would be part of our learning outcomes, but are not assessed. But then we can't say that they're covered then?
Well, if they are not assessed, how do you make sure that students have learned that?
Okay, so we have to have an assessment for every level of
Exactly.
outcome.
Exactly.
Okay.
I get your point. This is a more basic discussion about pedagogical offering of courses. Anything that is offered by the course as course learning outcome should be taught, practiced, and assessed by students. Otherwise, it cannot be a course learning outcome. If you just present students with something and you don't assess, they don't get a chance to practice, they don't assess it, how do I know? Maybe they have learned and maybe not. Okay, Michael, you have your hand raised, Michael?
Yes, I had a couple of questions in the chat.
Please go ahead.
So in the grid where we're mapping PLOs to courses and professors, what do we put in for professors who, or for courses who have no professors regularly, APUO professors, and they're always taught by different sessionals? Do we just leave the professor in charge blank?
Who is going? Okay, sorry.
Yep.
Carry on.
Go ahead, please. Yeah, thank you.
Who is going to identify your PLO? Let's say you have a course here, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, I see on the screen, and this course is supposed to be covering PLO 1. Who is going to decide whether PLO 1 is covered and at what level?
I will be deciding that because I'm the person who has the chair who has to do it. So
you
I'll
put
be
your
looking
name.
at. Okay.
You put your name. Wow. Wow. Yes.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
So
Yeah,
this is the backup plan. This is the backup plan that we have. In ideally, we should have the professor who is kind of experienced on that. But if you feel that you have sufficient knowledge about this course, please assign the IRA level that happens, in fact, is actual, is not theoric. So theoretically, we should offer this at the I level. But is this the thing that happens in the classroom? The second one is what needs to be guiding your IRA selection. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the only way I can glean that information will be from the syllabi that are offered by the APTPUO members who teach it. We're in a situation where we have more than 50% of our courses being taught by APTPUO, and they're not required to hand in syllabi, so I may have to use previous syllabi, but I'll figure that out. Second part to my question is in our particular program, we have two traditions of teaching. So not all of our courses, the same courses, are mirrored in English and French. The majority are, but there's probably about 10% which have the same course code in English and French, but a slightly different title because the tradition of teaching in the French culture and the topics are different from the English. So in preparing the initial document, can we just do one language, basically, put all this in one language, and then perhaps a few extra pieces in the language of the tradition for that particular course, and then later translate the common ones? Or do you want to have both the English and French, grids and everything, which are just, going to be repeated for the 90% or the courses?
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, this is it. Thank you for this question. This is a challenge. And from a pedagogical point of view, whether the course is offered in French or in English, the content should be the same. You agree with me? Otherwise, we are talking about two different programs. We should make two different programs. But things are what they are. The reality is what it is. The way I would handle this, Michael, is to look at the majority of your students. If the majority of your students are Francophone, then go for the French version of the courses. If the majority of your students are Anglophone, and again, we try to do our best to represent the typical scenario that happens. And we know that there are lots of exceptions.
Great. Thank you, Edmund, as well, for the very clear and wonderful presentation you gave us today.
Most welcome. I'm happy. So if there are other questions, I invite you to take the microphone. That would be much easier than me reading on the. So we still have a few minutes left. Tara, please go ahead.
Edmund, I have a specific question to our program. So if there are others that want to go first, I'm happy to wait, but I also don't want you to hang out before I ask.
Okay, let me look real quick. So Marie-Ève, Michael, Jacques Van Beek, it's Michael issue. Tara, it's you. Michael, no, I think we're good. I don't see any other names. So please go ahead, Tara.
Okay, we have 3 different concentrations, and each concentration has their own so there's certain classes that are mandatory for everyone, and then certain classes that are mandatory depending on what concentration you are. And some of those mandatory courses for one stream could be an elective for another, and vice versa. So when you're saying that we can only put in one course, it makes it very challenging, especially when we're doing the part about mapping what's optional versus elective. So it's almost like we have 3 different programs, and I'm just wondering how to set that up.
Good question, Tara. You bring challenges every day.
Yeah.
Well, I would go again with first question. Please refresh my memory. Are these three are students compelled to use a concentration, or they can go only for the core PLOs and be graduated without any concentration?
No, they have to have one of the three concentrations.
Okay.
Yes.
Second question then. What is your most popular concentration?
We have two that are just as popular.
Well, pick one randomly.
Okay, let's say policy.
And do the
Sure.
course PLO mapping for the policy concentration only. Yeah.
But the problem is that we have to make sure that we're fitting all the requirements for the others, and it's just as high. So I do worry about that.
No, if you select, okay, I'm trying to understand the challenge here. If you select your concentration, let's say you told me policy concentration, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so policy concentration, you consider that your core PLO plus the PLO on the policy concentration is your program. Then you have the PLOs and the courses that are covering these. So you consider you abstract everything else. Anything else is abstracted. You say that in the world there are no other concentration. Obviously, we are cheating here, but we are simplifying the problem in order to be able to tackle it. Otherwise, we should do this exercise 3 times, once for each concentration. It's up to you if you want to uptake that route, but it's going to be heavy.
I think it's going to be heavy, but I think it might be necessary because we have program learning outcomes that are separate for each one as well. So we do in a way have to make sure that we cover, for this stream, you do this. Oh gosh. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. No, every situation is unique. Yes, Michael.
This might be a little bit related to what Tara.
Michael, you're on mute. You went on mute.
Sorry about that. This is, I think, a bit related to what Tara was talking about. We have 28 programs in our department. Of course, some of these are, for example, honors in environmental studies. And then we have a major in environmental studies and a concentration in environmental studies and an.
You went mute again.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there with the mute. It keeps going. So for example, our major programs are going to be the honors, environmental studies, honors geography, honors in physical geography and geomatics. Would we just do the PLO mapping and everything for those, and then what do we do for the sub programs? Like the majors and the concentrations and stuff like that.
Well, we hope that we can extrapolate once you do, for example, for your bachelor, your main program, your core program or your flagship program. We hope that by extrapolation, the rest also is aligned. Again, this is not wishful thinking. This is a educated hope, I would say, because we are kind of in the same context, in the same environment. So most probably, even if you mentioned 28 programs, I mean, flavors of programs, right? Mm-hmm. If you do 28 times this activity, imagine you had infinite resources that you did 28 times this activity. At the end of the day, you would observe, you agree with me, that most of the flaws, if there were flaws, the gaps and redundancies for one program were kind of repeated for the other programs. So that's the kind of logic that we use as a proxy to simplify the overall activity. Please go with your honors program. Only one.
Okay, great. That's what I was thought, and I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Excellent. Okay, I'm looking at the list of questions. I think there are no more questions to be addressed. So is there anyone in the room with whom I have not worked? So I do not have any record of you in my kind of It looks like I recognize all the names. Perfect. Perfect. So that's great.
So Edmund, can
Miriam,
I ask
yes.
you, it's Valwantuana, can I ask you, what's the timeline for you to receive all this information now from
Well,
us?
yeah. Let me share with you real quick. Sorry, I think I have to go forward. Usually we expect this to reach us within 2 to 3 weeks from the date that I sent you this information. So the links to the Excel files. So we have the PLOs. I assume that we have the PLOs, final version of the PLOs, consultation with profs having been done, etc. We hope to get feedback from you with the information within 2 to 3 weeks. And it will take 2 to 3 weeks, so depending on my load, because I'm the only person working on all these projects for everyone at the university. So I will need some time, 2 to 3 weeks to kind of get back to you with a report. So within 6 weeks, you will have hopefully all the information you need. All right?
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome. Myriam, go ahead, please.
Oui, merci beaucoup pour la présentation. Comme toujours, c'est toujours vraiment clair et très efficace. So I was wondering if we already identified some redundancy within the curriculum, and that we already identify some courses that poses problem. Do we have to are we like, is it mandatory to like go through all this process even if we already targeted which courses are problematic in relationship to the PLOs?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Miriam, at the end of the day, the purpose of this activity is to offer you a tool to detect if there are problems. Now, if you have done this activity on your own and you know that there are kind of you can go ahead and submit a curriculum change proposal. But this being said, I strongly advise and I encourage you to follow this process so you are sure that nothing is left outside the scope, because it would be a challenge again to do all of this stuff and then come back and see that there is something that is missing. So this is a tool that we are offering you to ensure that the coherence. So if you can prove that you have other tools, use other tools, and you can prove with sufficiently solid and robust basis, you have already detected but people are going to ask you, did you do that? So we have an official and a workable solution. But if you feel comfortable with going the other route, it's up to you. But beware, there may be questions about the process, what process, because this is quality control. All right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I would say to go through along this process, it's not going to be too much time consuming, but it's going to be very, very helpful at the end of the day, especially because I'm a neutral person to the academic unit. So there is no kind of hidden agenda whatsoever. I'm coming from a neutral position. Thank you for the good question. Michael.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you again, Edmund, for entertaining another question for me. It's the first time I've done this, so this is probably why I may not know as much. Now, 2 to 3 weeks, you mean 2 to 3 weeks from today, right?
From the time you receive the email from me. So once I have the reviews, this is how it works. I look at your file. I look at the last version of the PLOs. What is your program again? Can you remind me, Michael?
We have I have 3 geography, environmental studies, and physical geography and geomatics.
So have we done the PLOs with you?
No.
So we have to wait.
We met. So sorry.
We have to do the PLOs first, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, so once the PLOs are done, PLOs are done, it's a whole process, right? So we have at the end of the process consultation with professors. So after the PLOs have been finalized, I will send you an email and tell your academic unit, okay, we are set to go. We can start with the course PLO mapping now.
Okay. Now, in terms of designing the initial set of PLOs, I've already done that, but we thought perhaps we should be doing that more democratically with the entire assembly of APUO professors, and this will take many months because of the, obviously everybody has to have input, and some of these might change. Is that normal? Is that normal that do most people do that? We have the PLOs, a draft, then we go through the departmental assembly twice, which is a 2-month process, and then finally send you some PLOs.
So to go through the PLO process, here's how it works. We have a set of steps to follow, and we come up with a set of PLOs that are submitted to go through this democratic process to the whole academic community involved in your program, whether they are regular professors or part-time professors. So they have their say, but instead of sending them things that are not very, robustly designed, we send them something, and this something, the set of PLO that is sent to them would have undergone multiple vetting by rubrics, by mappings, etc., which will make them very, very robust. So once you send this to your faculty members, you will get much richer feedback rather than starting from scratch. So please don't start by sending this, because it's going to take forever.
Yes, that was this is my fear. Okay, so that's good to know then. I will you'll hear from me soon then with the PLOs that we've come up with, and then we'll go through that process, and once they're robust, then we consult with the members.
Yes, and the sooner we finish, we finalize your PLOs, the earlier you can start on the course PLO mapping, Michael.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Marie-Ève.
The second question for me. So we have 10 PLOs and they've been reviewed and everything. The biggest question I have is that for nursing in 4th year, especially, we have a lot of practicums. So practicums in theory should cover all 10 PLOs as our last practicums. Do we just put that they cover all 10 and at what level they cover?
If this is something that you expect is practicum, sorry, I changed my wording. If this is something that happens during the practicum, not expect to. This is really what happens on the ground? Yes, by all means. So practicum, and so we have the same thing in engineering. They have a capstone project, and usually in the capstone project, the students need to prove competency at advanced level in all PLOs: communication, teamwork, engineering stuff, etc., etc. So it's the same for you, but it has to be what happens in the field, not something that you expect, Marie-Ève. And that's a huge difference. This is why I corrected myself.
Yeah, so we have a consolidation. In theory, for the student to be able to graduate, they would have to have all 10 competencies covered in the 10 PLOs covered in that consolidation.
Yes.
But I can't guarantee all the time, but I will chat with the profs.
Exactly. That's the right thing to do. And the other thing is that you have the accreditation requirements on your side.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So your case is a special case. When you are talking about accreditation, alignment with accreditation, they have their own requirements. So that's the best time. That's the best time to verify whether the accreditation requirements are also satisfied
with the competencies. Perfect.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Exactly. You're welcome. Welcome. All right. So let me see if there's any other question. No, it seems that no more questions here. So thank you very much for your attention and for staying over time. I really enjoyed the questions because each time your questions enrich my presentation for the next batch. I try to incorporate as much as I can those aspects in my presentation. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send me a note, and we will keep in touch, obviously, for those of you who have, again, so if you have, just to clarify, we have already the PLOs, nothing to do. If we haven't done this, please send me an email. Marie-Ève, did you want to say something else?
Very, very quick question. So we did get some folders that were shared with us in the SharePoint and everything. They were all in French. I don't mind French, but I think some of the members in our team might prefer them in English. Is it possible to request that all our documentation is sent in English?
Alors, when you say documentation, you mean the guide, for example, or?
Yeah, so just like all the previous stuff were in French. Can I submit them?
Are you talking about the PLOs?
No, what we received last week after last week's presentation. So I'm just wondering if the PLOs will also be sent in just one language. Because I attended both the French and English sessions.
They should be. They should be. Okay. So for the PLOs, here's how it works. I offer you a translation, but not being a subject matter expert. So if your PLOs are in English, I offer you a translation in French and vice versa. And I submit it to you to kind of align, especially the terms that are related to subject matter expertise, to make sure that your PLOs are and the rest is bilingual, so the guides and stuff like that. Well, we do our best, Marie-Ève, but we have limited resources also. So please be patient with us.
It's perfect, perfect. I was just looking into the folders and ça dit évaluation périodique en cours, and then like the folders are just in French, but it's all good. Thanks so much.
So I think you are talking about the folders shared by Graciela Dancos with you. Wait. Okay. So this is, please send her an email because she is in charge of that. I'm not controlling that. Yeah.
That's fair. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and have a great end of week. Bye-bye.